I don't have a deadline for withdrawal, but I'm certainly not somebody who believes in indefinite occupations of other countries.
Good evening and welcome to Pull. The U.S. commander in Afghanistan, General Stanley McChrystal, recently submitted his strategy recommendations to President Obama. In his report, General McChrystal said, quote, "The situation is serious, but success is achievable." And though he has not yet asked for additional U.S. troops, that request is expected to follow. But any additional U.S. forces may not only face an uphill battle in Congress among members of the president's own party, but among the American people as well. 51% now believe that the war in Afghanistan is no longer worth the fight. With fighting intensifying, casualties up, and support falling, just how will the Obama administration respond?
The question that I'm asking right now is to our military, to General McChrystal, to General Petraeus, to all our national security apparatus, is whether it's troops who are already there or any troop requests in the future, how does this advance America's national security interests? How does it make sure that al-Qaeda and its extremist allies cannot attack the United States homeland, our allies, our troops who are based in Europe?
Joining me is Ronald Neumann, President of the American Academy of Diplomacy and former ambassador to Afghanistan during the most recent Bush administration.
رئیس American Academy of Diplomacy و سفیر قبلی ایالات متحده در افغانستان در زمان اداره بوش و جیل دورانسورو
Also Gilles Dorronsoro, a visiting scholar at the Carnegie Endowment, focusing on security and political development in Afghanistan. Mr. Dorronsoro has just recently returned from a month-long trip through Afghanistan to assess the Taliban insurgency and propose a strategy for the coalition forces.
Thank you for coming. As I mentioned, according to a Washington Post ABC News poll, 51% of Americans now oppose the war in Afghanistan. This is something that concerns the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Mullen.
I'm certainly aware of the criticality of support of the American people for this war and in fact any war. And so certainly the numbers are of concern. That said, the President's given me and the American military a mission, and that focuses on a new strategy, new leadership, and we're moving very much in that direction.
If President Obama decides to send more troops to Afghanistan, do you think that he will have the support of the American people?
Everything depends on the result. Contrary to what was said, I don't think there is a new strategy, or at least there is no working new strategy. What we have seen this summer, beside the election that were a mess, of course, is the failure of the offensive in Helmand province. That is to say that the clear old build strategy that was McChrystal's strategy is not working in the south of Afghanistan and in the east.
And why is it not working?
It's not working because the clear phase is not doable, really. Especially in Helmand, where there is no real police force, where the Afghan National Army is mostly inexistent. It's impossible for the American forces to control a Pashtun village in Helmand.
Well, what should they be doing?
They should concentrate on cities where first there is a growing insecurity. Kandahar, of course, but you know about Khost, you know about Gardez, all these places. And second, try to secure strategic roads. And I don't think you can do much more in the south, especially not trying to control large area like the central valley of Helmand. I think that's extremely dangerous. It's not working. And if you send 40,000 men, 50,000 men, you're not going to solve that. So I would say that it's a turning point. If Obama is not thinking again its strategy in Afghanistan, it's going to be a disaster. I don't think in 1 year it's going to be possible to win.
I do believe we will need more troops because I think we have to build larger Afghan forces, and that is going to take some time, 1, 2, 3 years. And so there is going to have to be a shield to protect the building. You can't create a force overnight.
But Ambassador Neumann, some analysts are saying that you can actually achieve results with less U.S. troops on the ground. Do you agree with that?
No,
and why not?
I don't right now. 2 reasons. Well, there are 2 different kinds of analysis that you're talking about. It's not one. There is the kind of Rory Stewart analysis that says have very few troops, let Afghans solve it for themselves. I think in the end that has to become the truth, but right now there is not enough strength in the government and the country to stand up against the reinforcements from across the border, from all that the Taliban can bring to bear in fear. So, short, no, you can't do that. And then there are other analysts who say, just go hunt terrorists. That's what Rumsfeld tried at the beginning. It was a failure, and it's one of the reasons we have so many problems now that we didn't do at the beginning what we needed to do.
The same, Washington Post survey also found that 50% of Americans think that the numbers of troops should be actually decreased and not increased. In August 2009 specifically posed, one of the deadliest months for U.S. troops, with about 45 U.S. servicemen killed. And of course, civilian casualties also continuing to rise. Does this show that the Taliban is actually stronger than in the past?
Well, one thing maybe, it's not only 45, it's 76 if you take the coalition. Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's United States is part of a coalition, and when you have 76 people killed in Afghanistan, means that in Europe, in Canada, you have a major political problem. The second thing is that if you're sending 40,000 men, means your casualties are going to increase. So the level of support for the war is going to decrease automatically. And where I am very surprised and worried, is that nobody is speaking about the failure of the current strategy. If we have the same strategy, why is going to work with 40,000 more? It's not going to work. Plus, I would say the last thing is that we should not focus on the number of troops, really. Because, for example, you have 4,000 Germans in the north of Afghanistan. What are they doing exactly? The same job could be done better with 500 Marines. So it's not only a level of troop, what kind of troop, to do what? And sadly, these questions are not really on the agenda.
And what do you think that the troops should be doing?
In the north, you have a major problem in Kunduz and Baghlan, as you know. The road is cut every day by the Taliban. It's not necessarily on the news, but it's there, I was there in April, I came back in August. The situation deteriorated so quickly, Now you have fighters, 80, 100 Taliban fighters attacking a district center. That's incredible, Killing the police chief. We have that all the time in Kunduz. 1-2 kilometers outside the city of Kunduz, at night it's Taliban land.
President Obama has called Afghanistan a war of necessity. Do you feel that the Afghans see this as a war of necessity and that they will continue to support U.S. and coalition troops in Afghanistan?
I think the majority of the Afghan people desperately want a better future. They are terribly tired of years of violence. And I think overall they will still support a foreign presence if they believe it is helping Afghanistan get to a better future.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll look at fallout from the recent NATO airstrike in Kunduz province and the controversy over civilian casualties.
I'm not interested in just being in Afghanistan for the sake of being in Afghanistan or saving face or in some way, sending a message that America is here for the duration.
Back with Ambassador Ronald Neumann and Gilles Dorronsoro.
General McChrystal, the new U.S. commander in Afghanistan, recently said in the New York Times, quote, "At the end of the day, you're fighting for the population, not with the population or against the population. As you fight for them, you're trying to convince them. You're in an argument with the enemy over the population, and they're watching what you do and what you say. They're going to decide based on who makes the most convincing argument." Gilles, who do you think is making the most convincing argument, the Taliban or the U.S. military?
Right now, clearly the Taliban. Actually, the Taliban can clear an area from our allies, from people who are supporting the coalition. They can build some kind of administration, basic administration, few taxes, judges, and it's a kind of security. The coalition is not able to do that in the countryside, and even in the cities, it's not really able to do that. So right now they are winning.
Let's listen to what U.S. Secretary of Defense Robert Gates recently said about U.S. presence in Afghanistan.
As soon as the Soviets left Afghanistan, we turned our backs on Afghanistan. And we did not cultivate our relationship with the Pakistanis properly. And so I think we gave rise to doubts in the region about whether we are prepared to stay there and be their partner on a continuing basis. And I believe we have learned our lesson, and that both Afghanistan and Pakistan can count on us for the long term.
Gilles, do you believe that the U.S. will stay as a partner to Afghanistan in a way that will help the Afghan people to succeed?
Maybe something I would like to say is that first, Pakistan doesn't want the coalition to stay in Afghanistan. I mean, they are supporting the Taliban. They want us to leave Afghanistan. So I don't think the idea that we should be long-term a partner of Pakistan and Afghanistan, I mean, it doesn't work like that. If we stay in Afghanistan, we'll have trouble with Pakistan, like we have now. If we are leaving Afghanistan without securing the Afghan government, Pakistan and Taliban will be back in Afghanistan. So basically the only options, realistic option we have, is to build a good Afghan government that is strong enough so we can withdraw. Not everything, not all our forces, but most of our forces.
I think Pakistani policies are in flux. There is a much greater Pakistani civilian hostility to the Taliban than there used to be. The military has taken on some larger operations. I think I cannot be sure right now which way the Pakistanis will go. But I do think that if we are leaving, certainly they have no, if we were leaving Afghanistan, they have no reason to be fighting the Taliban on their side of the border very hard if the Taliban are going to be doing well on the other side.
Many Afghans are still angry that there's still so many civilian casualties, and they want to know, what can U.S. and NATO do to better prevent these casualties? What do you think, Ambassador?
I think the first thing Afghans can do is to join their own army, so they're fighting their own war. There are a lot of Afghans who need to be in this fight. And going back to your question about Americans, about how we will stay with the war, I think a big piece of how foreigners, Americans and others, will stay and keep their commitment will depend on the performance of Afghanistan. If they believe the government is working for the country, it will be easier to get foreigners to support it. If Afghans are fighting for their country, foreigners are more likely to stay, and foreign Americans to accept their role. Afghans should not expect foreigners will do it forever without them.
But Ambassador, going to that issue of civilian casualties, that's an issue where the Afghans are obviously not involved, and it's being caused by these continuous use of air power. And that's one of the reasons why Afghans feel that the civilian casualties can be reduced. Do you think that there should be still this great reliance on air power?
Well, I've been a soldier. I've asked for airstrikes when I was in a fight. And it is going to be very hard to get a soldier to say, I need to have a few more of my men killed. But there are a lot of room between no air power and bomb everything. And I think that they will do better, but they will not be perfect.
When we come back, the ongoing presidential elections and international pressure on the next leader of Afghanistan.
اما بعد از یک وقفه کوتاه با ما باشید.
Back with Gilles Dorronsoro and Ambassador Ronald Neumann.
Under the new Obama strategy, there's also this increase in what's called a civilian surge, sending thousands more development workers to Afghanistan.
Not thousands.
Planned thousands, but perhaps hundreds are there at this point. Do you feel that these development workers will actually help to implement progress on the ground? Because many Afghans say that, look, we don't need more advisors, we don't need more reports, we want to be part of the rebuilding process. So do you think there's going to be a role for Afghans if there are so many troops and foreign advisors who are planned to come in?
It's a very dangerous thing, you know. Already, you know, 40% of the money we're sending to Afghanistan is coming back to foreign companies or foreign experts as fees, you know, salaries, and so on. So we should be extremely careful. Sending more people could be useful punctually, but mostly it's dangerous, I would say. So we have to take care. If it's in Kabul to give a technical support, yes. If it's in Helmand to build another local administration, it's dangerous.
So you're saying, you know, more Afghans could be included in the rebuilding process?
Of course, I mean, basically, we cannot run the Afghan state. It has to be the job of the Afghans. The problem is that right now, as you know, the Karzai is weakened. He's probably going to win the election, but he's going to be a weaker position than 6 months ago. And you know, he has dealt with a lot of warlords and local powers, and it's not going to help to centralize the system. So we are in a kind of double bind, you know. If we don't do the job ourselves, it's not going to be done. If we do it, it's taking the space of the Afghan state. So difficult.
Yeah, and on that point, Ambassador Neumann, as you may know, Ambassador Eikenberry released a memo recently that calls for Afghan-led projects, small scale, on the ground, with measurable, you know, results and accountability on the part of contractors. Do you think that this strategy will have the support of U.S. aid and the State Department? As someone who was ambassador in Kabul and who knows, you know, how the politics works between the agencies.
Yes, is the short answer. That the ambassador has a lot of weight, and I think we have also recognized that we need to do more of this. I'm quite confident will be supported, and this is an idea also that Eikenberry has had for a long time. He was the one, when he was military commander, who pushed the American military to begin buying more on the local market, to begin buying more from Afghans. To begin buying water. We still ship in a lot of water because the production capacity in the Afghan plants is too small. So I know that this idea of doing more that is Afghan-led is one that he very strongly supports, and I believe he has strong support in the administration for it.
As you stated, most of the money that's going to Afghanistan is going through the Defense Department, largely to contractors who are American. But do you think that this is a sign that the whole way that the U.S. allocates its foreign assistance, not only perhaps to Afghanistan, but other countries, needs to be dramatically changed?
First, we have to think again about this idea that we send most of our money in places where the fight is the worst. For example, in Helmand, you have $250 per capita help, I mean. In the north, 50. I don't think it's rational, you know. We should not send the money in the places where the Taliban are very strong, because part of the money is going to the Taliban. A lot of people are speaking about the Taliban being financed by drugs. We are financing the Taliban. Every time a contractor wants to work outside of Kandahar, is giving money to local guys, to local Taliban. So we should invest our money mostly in places where we can control the use of the money. Cities, Azarajat, some provinces in the north, Mazar-e-Sharif, for example, Jalalabad to a certain extent. That's where we can control the money.
General McChrystal has said that there'll be more reliance on Pakistan for them to secure their side of the border. Ambassador Neumann, as someone who was in Kabul and probably had to deal with the Pakistani government as well, do you think that the U.S. should be relying on Pakistan to provide for security in specifically the northwest frontier?
You know, when President Reagan used to work with the Russians, he had a wonderful saying. He said, trust but verify.
Check, yeah.
Check. So I think there are things we will do. I give the Pakistanis credit for the fighting in Swat, for the progress made there. Now, will they keep it? I mean, each phase you need to look at by itself. I'm much less interested in the question of whether you trust them. I'm much more interested in what do they do next, how do we help them, and how do we make sure that what they say they do, and then we help them more. That's the process.
What do you think about the role of Pakistan?
The basic thing is that SWAT and Waziristan and Badr Agency, it's Pakistani Taliban. It's not Afghan Taliban.
Yeah.
So basically, you know that, of course. So basically, the Pakistani army is fighting local Talibans, not Afghan Taliban. They never have done anything against the leadership of the Taliban in Quetta. That's very clear. They don't want. Why? Because basically the Pakistani army has one idea, is that to protect itself against India, and they want Afghanistan to be part of their sphere of influence. So they want us out. Pakistan is not our ally in Afghanistan. They are supporting the Taliban, they want us out. So basically giving $5 billion every year to Pakistan without conditionality, in fact. There is no conditionality. I think it's a little bit dangerous and it's a bit naive, maybe.
Ambassador and Special Envoy Richard Holbrooke recently said in response to what success is in Afghanistan that we'll know success when we see it. Ambassador, how would you define success in Afghanistan for first the U.S.?
I think for us, success in Afghanistan is an Afghan government which has enough support from its own people to carry on for a long time building the country and fighting probably a low level of war with economic support, but not dependent on foreign troops. To me, that is success.
Just to add the negative side, success should not be defined as controlling or sealing the border with Pakistan. It's not doable. Success is not taking back the countryside from the Taliban. It's not doable. Success is a sustainable Afghan state able to fight against the insurgency. That's why the cities are the key, because we must secure the city. The city is where the Afghan state is going to be rebuilt, not the countryside. So we agree, basically. And but that
we do sometimes.
Yeah. Sorry about that. And it means that we should be ready to send money and support, political, diplomatical support, to Afghanistan for a very, very long time. That's,
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate both of you coming on the show and sharing your insights and expertise on U.S. strategy for Afghanistan, some of the recent developments on the ground. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear what you think about this or any other poll program. Just go online to aamtv.tv or visit us at tolo.tv. See you next week for another edition of Poll.
با امید دیدار شما دوستان با برنامه بعدی پل خداحافظ و ناصر شما.